Take a look at this triangle. You can stretch it out, squash it down, or flip it around, but certain facts about it will always remain true. No matter what we do, those three inner angles will always add up to exactly 180 degrees. We didn't invent that rule. That mathematical truth exists as an eternal blueprint in our minds. Even if you wiped out every physical triangle in the universe, the concept, the absolute essence of a triangle, would stay exactly the same. The 17th century French philosopher René Descartes was fascinated by this idea. He realized that human reason comes preloaded with these absolute, undeniable geometric laws. This led him to a massive question. If our minds can grasp absolute certainty about shapes and numbers, could we use that exact same standard of strict mathematical logic to prove the existence of God? Right here, in his famous text, The Meditations, Descartes pivots his entire investigation away from physical matter to focus on divine existence. To build his case, he first asks us to accept a ground rule. We have to recognize the difference between things we casually invent in our imaginations and things that are objectively true. He is asking us to set aside telescopes, historical evidence, and even religious faith. He wants to see if pure, internal mental logic can build an airtight proof. But before he can examine the divine, he has to map out exactly how human imagination works. Look at this horse. Using what Descartes might call free imagination, we can easily decide to add a pair of wings to its back. A winged horse is completely arbitrary. We can give it feathers, scales, or take the wings away entirely, and we haven't broken any logical rules. The horse concept survives. Now watch what happens when we try to draw a mountain, but we deliberately refuse to include a valley next to it. It doesn't work out. The image errors out because you literally cannot have an upward slope without a downward dip. Descartes writes exactly this point in his Meditations. He argues that trying to separate a mountain from a valley is a literal contradiction. The mind rejects it. It turns out some concepts just come as a complete package. They are tethered together by logic, no matter what we want to believe. With that rule established, Descartes shifts his focus away from geography and turns his attention toward God. He isn't picturing a figure in the clouds. Instead, he defines God in the strictest philosophical sense, as a supremely perfect being. If we made a checklist to define what absolute perfection requires, we would have to include traits like being all-knowing, all-powerful, and entirely unchanging. The list fills up with flawless attributes. But as perfect as this being looks on our list, it's still missing one vital thing. Up to this point, this perfect being is still just an idea sitting inside our heads. So we have to ask ourselves, can we honestly call something a supremely perfect being if it is only a fictional concept and doesn't actually exist in the real world? Descartes points out the logical trap. If our perfectly flawless being does not actually exist, then it is lacking something, and a being that lacks anything cannot be supremely perfect. Descartes' logic was that a being that actually exists has a level of completeness that a mere idea lacks. Just as a real-world fortune is always better than just a mental image of one, he argued that reality itself is a form of perfection. To resolve the paradox, we have to look down here at the bottom of our checklist. Existence isn't an optional bonus feature. It is a mandatory, built-in requirement for perfection. This brings Descartes to his ultimate conclusion. Just as a valley cannot be stripped away from a mountain, actual existence cannot be stripped away from the definition of God. Because our minds can clearly understand the concept of a totally perfect being, that being must exist simply because existence is baked into its very definition. The audacity of this argument is striking. Descartes claimed to have solved the biggest mystery of the universe using nothing but the internal deductive logic of a geometer. He didn't build an observatory and didn't point to religious miracles. He sat in a room and traced a line of reasoning from a simple triangle straight to the divine. While treating physical existence as a mandatory checklist item might sound like a word puzzle today, it demonstrated that human thought alone could be a rigorous tool for exploring reality. So, does the mountain and valley logic convince you? Or is there a flaw in treating real-world existence like a simple geometric property? Let us know where you land in the comments.